When was the last time you were actually excited to check your mailbox? Yeah. See, when I was younger, I never really saw snail mail as anything other than an excuse to, 1, waste stamps, and 2, lick the sticky part of the envelope. After all, growing up in the digital age had brought communication right to my fingertips through social media. I never really had a need to send letters growing up. But now, my mail looks a little something like this. These are just a fraction of the letters I've received from my various pen pals from Norway and Sweden, Denmark and Germany, the Czech Republic, France and Italy. The list goes on. My name's Sophia, and I have a passion for writing and receiving letters. But how did I get here? How did I go from almost never sending a letter in my entire life to writing to dozens of people all across the globe? Now, this is going to sound really cliche, so bear with me, but it was when the COVID-19 pandemic hit during my 8th grade year in middle school that the world shut down into quarantine, and suddenly I couldn't see any of my closest friends face to face. So, as a joke and partially a cry for help, I sent my best friend a magnet in a tiny envelope addressed to their house. Additionally enclosed was a small note I wrote asking if they wanted to be pen pals with me. And looking back, I find this really random because I didn't even know what the term snail mail or pen paling even really meant. And for those who still don't know, snail mail refers to the traditional mail system. Think the Pony Express, as opposed to digital forms like email or texting. They wrote back in a letter saying that they'd love to be pen pals, and we continued to write one another. Although we FaceTimed and texted each other every day, as best friends do, writing to them pen to paper each week just felt like a more intimate way to foster our friendship during a time when it was impossible to do so in person. Meet Aldine, my first international pen pal, a Nordic girl who lives on the western coast of the Norwegian Sea in a small town called Tresfjord. So small, in fact, it's got a population of just under 2,000 people. In this photo, Aldine is wearing her bunad, a traditional Norwegian dress which her grandmother sewed her. In February of 2021, I took to Instagram's online pen paling and writing community to meet other people like Aldine. First, we started texting, and we found that the two of us had a lot in common, even though we lived in totally different time zones. So when the two of us agreed to send letters to one another, I was especially excited to get to write to someone in another country, because I knew that I could not only make a friend, but also learn more about the Nordic culture. We wrote about our days in quarantine, what food we ate, how our families were doing, and basically everything that was on our minds. It was so nice to know that someone so far away cared about how I was doing and wanted to write back. Quarantine may be over now, but Aldine and I still send letters to this day, because to us, pen paling isn't just a way to pass the time at home anymore. It's a mindset. The deep interpersonal connections I've made with my pen pals has largely reshaped how I view people of other countries and cultures. Yeah, sure, we learn about other cultures through history class and the media, but it's especially important to hear it from the horse's mouth. One funny example I like to tell is how the 2019 film Midsummer genuinely had me believing that Midsummer was a Swedish death cult ritual. So, as you can imagine, I was pretty shocked when I read in a letter from my Swedish pen pal, Theodora, where she clarified that Midsummer is actually not cultish and is, in fact, a traditional festival to honor the summer solstice. And she told me all about how her family celebrates it by eating a home-cooked meal together each June. See, there's a comfort that comes with knowing people on every continent. Well, almost every continent. I don't have an Antarctic pen pal yet, and I probably never will. And although I've never been outside the United States, pen paling has made the world feel infinitely small to me. Political boundaries feel silly and unimportant almost. For example, during the onset of the Russian and Ukrainian war this year, global tensions were higher than ever, especially in the media. In fact, Instagram was soon to be banned in Russia entirely. And while scrolling my feed one evening, I came across a goodbye post by a successful Russian pen paler and content creator named Lydia, who I followed. Lydia wrote farewell to her fans and followers, saying that although her platform would soon be stripped from her, that she wouldn't stop writing letters because it was, as she described, an indispensable part of her life. I'll never forget the gut-wrenching feeling I had reading that caption because I couldn't believe all the hate that her and other Russian creators were receiving for doing something so simple like writing letters like I did back here in America. So I reached out to her to sympathize, and the two of us agreed to swap postcards while we still could. I've actually got the postcard she wrote me here today, which I'll read out loud. I don't know if you can see, but it's got little tulips and roses on it. Yeah. Dated March 2022. Hello, Sophia. It's really nice to meet you. My name is Lydia. I'm 17 years old. My passions are tea, mail art, drawing, cloudy weather, matcha, and traveling. My favorite subjects are English and history. Mine too. The most enjoyable time for me is with my family. We're all very close together. How are you? Signed, Lydia. Lydia's not a gunslinging Russian. She's a 17-year-old girl who likes matcha. But her nationality made her a victim of political hate. See, writing provides us with a middle ground to see humans as intellectuals and not as a nationality or race. Because with pen paling and writing, first impressions are entirely thrown out the window. With some of my pen pals, I've never even seen their faces before. I have no idea what they look like. But it doesn't matter. I don't have time to judge them by what shoes they wear or what their hair looks like or how socially awkward they are. The only thing you have to judge people by in writing is what they've put on the paper, their innermost thoughts and emotions. I truly believe that that postcard is a political statement in itself, one which retaliates against the news and media systems which try so hard to divide us. With this, writing improves relationships and well-being by encouraging thoughtful communication. When responding to another person's letter, it's not all about me anymore. Rather, writing allows us to reflect and respond in regards to us and our own two lives comparatively. Many of you may be familiar with the term fast fashion, which refers to mass-produced clothing often made unethically in sweatshops with little care and cheap materials that aren't meant to last. It's a very toss-and-go system. I see social media as the fast fashion of communication. Frequent texts and posts can often desensitize us. On the other hand, I see writing and pen paling as the slow fashion of communication. From the way each person dots their I's and crosses their T's, to the way they sign their name at the bottom of each paper, everything about writing is so personal. With this in mind, writing allows us the much-needed downtime to be fully in the moment and present to respond, thus stimulating the creative mind. As you saw in this collage, a lot of pen palers like myself like to decorate the outsides of envelopes to add character to them, whether it be by adding stickers or washi tape. In my case, I like to make collages out of old magazines I collect. One of my most recent envelope designs was to Aldine in Norway, who I mentioned earlier. I made this composition of cutouts from the 1960s Nat Geo article titled, "By Parachute into Prue's Lost World." The camera cutouts are actually from an old Kodak advertisement. I made this piece to address the imposition of white journalists on Native land, hence the cameras being shoved in the face of this young Native mother. Another one of my favorite envelope designs is this Da Vinci-themed piece, which I made for my Swedish pen pal, Theodora, nicknamed Teddy. I made this piece of cutouts from the 1970s Nat Geo article titled, Da Vinci, A Man for All Ages. It's a shame that most people fall out of creative hobbies as they get older because holding something so carefully constructed by another person is priceless to me. I think most of us can agree that we hate checking our mail, and rightfully so. Given the piles of coupons and random insurance advertisements we constantly receive, most mail is mundane now and easily disregarded. But it really doesn't have to be. I encourage you all to write more, but don't think I'm totally anti-social media here. Aldine and I actually still text and FaceTime each other each week to fill in the gaps while we await one another's letters. To us, pen paling is all about finding a bridge between physical and digital communication to best foster our friendship. Now, I'm certainly not advising you to give out your address to random people on Instagram, but you can start by writing a friend in town or even a family member. Maybe someone you knew who moved away to another state or even country. Reach out to make that lifelong connection because I promise you, it's so worth it. Thank you.